Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Cup of Joe with Joe and Joe podcast. I am your host, Joe, and with me, as always, is my wonderful co-host, Joe.
It's time for some flashbacks, baby.
It is time for the flashback episode. So hello, everyone, welcome back. Cup of Joe. It's the anime edition. We are continuing our journey into the final season of Attack on Titan, this time with episode 9, Brave Volunteers. But before we get into that, just real briefly, I say the final season, but it might be the final season part 1. Joe, you want to elaborate on that dramatic little thing I just did?
So, if you listened last week, or maybe even if you just, follow Attack on Titan in general and you're just joining us for the first time this week, a lot of people realized, or maybe it was just me finally realizing and other people had realized it, but there was no confirmation if these 16 episodes were going to be a part 1 or a part 2, or if this was just the final season of Attack on Titan. Like, they didn't know, Studio Mappa did not confirm or deny it. And the internet went wild, kind of being like, oh, what's going to happen? Oh, maybe could it be a movie instead of a part 2? And basically, over the weekend, we got later in the week, over the weekend, we got confirmation that there's going to be more. There's going to be more to these 16 episodes. Netflix Japan sent out a tweet saying, oh yeah, like Attack on Titan, the final season, part 1 is going to be up on Netflix on this date or whatever. So, I mean, that insinuates that there's got to be a part 2 or a movie, because apparently the director or something like that, or somebody had said something about a movie, and there's all this stuff about the pacing, and because they also haven't finished the manga yet, and there was so many articles, so many Reddit pages I went down, and it was just way too much information. But the main gist of it is these 16 episodes aren't the end. And it's crazy how much can change in 2 weeks, because 2 weeks ago we were talking like, oh my goodness, it's almost over.
We're so close to the end, and then it's like, yeah, well, actually, you might not be as close to the end as you think. And, I am both ecstatic and kind of like a little crestfallen. Like, I said, a little, like the tiniest amount of crestfallen, because part of me is just like, I love when we get nice conclusions to things. And they're not saying if they do a part 2 or a movie, it's not going to have a great conclusion. I'm just more so like, fuck, I gotta wait for more Attack on Titan.
Yeah, and that's the big thing Joe and I are worried about, is how long is this gap going to be? Because somewhere it said, or based on the article I was reading, it said like, oh, part 2 for 2021. But if this thing is, right now, if these 16 episodes are supposed to finish in March, I think it's mid-March, and if there's a part 2, a movie, how long is the gap going to be in between? Do we have to wait till December of 2021? If there's a movie, is there going to be a theatrical release? Is it going to be available in the US? There's so much stuff that we don't know, and we're definitely getting ahead of ourselves. Like, we haven't even finished this part 1, and there's probably still so much crazy stuff that's going to happen. But it's just crazy to think that Attack on Titan can just throw you so much stuff. And the fact that they can throw stuff that's, like outside the actual story of the show, that there's actual drama around how many episodes, when they're releasing, it shows you how big of a deal it is.
Yeah, definitely. And it's the curveballs in the narrative, they're there. They're strong. The meta curveballs outside of the narrative, they're also there, and they are also quite strong. So it's interesting to see how this is going to develop. I just really, at this point, I just want some form of confirmation. Although in reality, like we're 9 episodes in, we're over halfway through the final season. Maybe part 1, probably part 1, and the fact that we haven't gotten any form of confirmation yet leads me to believe that we are not going to get confirmation until like the final episode, unless like a massive leak happens and then the studio is basically forced to just be like, yeah, so like this is the end of part one or whatever sort of thing. But I am very intrigued to see what is going to be possibly, maybe, if this is indeed just part one. I'm intrigued to see what's going to be coming down the pipeline for a movie or a part two or something like that. But again, getting ahead of ourselves, it's not even confirmed. We don't even know if it's real. I mean, it's like it's pretty much confirmed and pretty much real. But again, we're not saying that. We're not saying that. So, what we can talk about with absolute certainty is episode 9. So, Joe, what are your thoughts on this one? The recap, the not recap, the flashback.
It was exactly what I wanted. It was it was placed in the season. The halfway point was really smart. We talked about that last episode. Like, all right, this is the good place to put it. And I was talking about wanting this episode since we first started talking about Attack on Titan a couple weeks ago, and this episode starts off with I thought this is okay. This is the big thing. I thought this whole episode was going to be flashback. And the big thing that surprised me is it's not. It's flashback and and right after what happened with the attack on Marley, which really, really caught me off guard. I was extremely surprised about that. I liked it. I think it was really cool. Maybe I wanted a little more flashback, but in all honesty, they give you quite a lot. And and we learn the flashback in it's this the setup of the flashback is Armin is sitting down holding the conch shell. It's the conch shell that they found when they finally reached the beach and they saw the ocean for the first time, and he's talking to someone, and he's kind of reminiscing about he looks so like just not depressed but almost like exhausted, and he's kind of ruminating and thinking about the past, and most of the episode is what I assume to be the visualization of what he's telling this person that he's talking to.
Yeah. Real quick though, I knew who the person he was talking to like immediately. Like when I saw the first shot of the room that he was in, I knew.
Yeah.
Did you know? Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
So
not hard to figure out.
yeah, this was the thing. All throughout, once this season started, and I started seeing all these other Titans. I'm just gonna go out and say it here, Joe. Um,
Hmm.
in my mind, I'm like, oh my goodness. I'm like, whatever happened to Annie? I'm like, we
Whatever happened to Annie?
haven't seen her since the first season, and that was kind of a big deal. And I'm like, oh my god, I'm like, I wonder if she's gonna have a big role, or she's gonna come back. I'm like, I wonder what they're gonna do with that, because I really didn't want them to just kind of like leave it. And knowing the people who create this show, they weren't. But yeah, so the person that Armin is talking to, I mean, you find this out at the last shot of the episode, is that Armin's talking to the still crystallized Annie, which they have somewhere in like a dungeon or something.
Hmm.
um, and he's telling her what's happened. And so what we learn is that we learn about the scout ship that were being sent over to that the Marlians were being that were sending over to Paradise. And this is after they found out, the warrior unit returned and that the Paradise Islanders defeated them. So they're sending over these scout ships, and none of them are returning. And it looks like that the scouts are kind of, actually taking on a lot of them, and they're trying to capture some of them, get information, and eventually we find out that there's some turncoats in the actual scout ships. Um, and we find out the girl, Yelena, that's her name, correct, I think?
Yes.
Who is the tall girl, great
Tall
Netflix
girl.
film. um,
This is
she's the
the hill
one.
we're going to die on, Joe. This is what our channel is going to be known for. We're the channel with the hot take that Tall Girl is a good film.
No, it's not.
It's not. It's so not.
But we find out how they first meet, Helena and the Scout Regiment and
The
of the Paradise.
Paradise Island Devils.
Yes, and it really took me by surprise. And Joe, do you want to talk a little bit about this first encounter?
Yeah, it's interesting the way it kind of plays out. Aaron like lifts up their ship out of the harbor and he just plops it down, and then Hanji is just sort of like, "Hey, nice to meet you guys. Let's all go for some tea." And then the commander of the ship is like, I'm gonna fucking shoot you." And she's like, "Oh, please don't. We have a Titan like right behind you." And he's like, "No, death to you, Paradise Islanders." And then you hear a shot fired, and everyone's sort of like, And then the camera pulls out, and you realize Commander's been shot by none other than Yelena. And there are some people on the ship that like all of a sudden are like guns trained on Yelena, and you're like, how did she get out of this one? And she's like, drop your guns. And then more soldiers point the guns at the soldiers that are pointing their guns at her, and you're like, oh, so some people were on board and some people were not on board. And you find that out, and you're like, okay, this is interesting. And so Yelena sort of is as we found out in like the previous episode, she is loyal to Zeke Yeager, not Marley, because she and I'm gonna try and pronounce his name correctly, Anya Capone,
That
the
was
African
really
American
good.
guy. Really?
That was
Thank you.
yeah, that was awesome.
Yeah. So Yelena and Anya Capone are they're not Marlians in the sense
No,
of like they were born there. They were people from different places that Marley conquered and then like
forced them to
threw
join the
into their
military.
exactly. So they really don't have any loyalty to the Marlians,
Mm-mm.
and Zeke knows this, and Zeke has, gathered a coalition of them, and so they're now they have a name for their force. I don't
The
remember what it is.
anti-Marley volunteers.
Volunteers.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, the anti-Marleyan volunteers that want to free the Eldian people. So it makes total sense that Yelena, with orders from Zeke to, take out the idiot commander or whatever, would then try and form a alliance with the Paradise Island people, because she obviously wants to meet Eren, because Eren, the founding Titan, and Zeke, a Titan of royal blood, will have the ability to control the founding Titan's power. So she wants to get that stuff going along. And so it's cool to see the interactions between the Paradise Islanders and the Zeke's volunteer force, whatever the heck they're called. I've already forgotten. um, but it's cool to see that connection between the two of them and like see kind of how it forms. And obviously, it's really rocky in the beginning, and Levi is like kicking Hanji under the table and telling her stop getting so intrigued by everything they're talking about with like semi-automatic guns and air like air artillery and airships and stuff like that, because it'll make us look weak. But Hanji can't control herself, and she's just like, "Oh my God, you have airships and stuff. That's so cool!" And so it's like that. They're impressed by that. Yelena is impressed by the fact that, and I thought this might come into play at some point, because I was like, "It's an island. Surely there can't be Titans forever." Yelena is impressed by the fact that the Paradise Islanders have slaughtered all of the normal Titans on the island, so now they can just live outside of the walls on the island, which is it's something that's just glossed over pretty much, but it's really cool when you think about it. You're like, these people have been confined to these walls for so long, and now they can just live out there, which they don't really want to because they could be invaded, but they can now, and it's cool.
Yeah, that I loved her reaction too, because she almost like fangirled over it. She's like it blew away her expectations, and I really like Yelena. Like I didn't think I was gonna like her, but the way she holds herself and the way her character, you learn more about her in this episode. I want to learn more about her. I think she's really cool. But the big thing for me was, finally, like, okay, we find out Zeke has a master plan. Zeke is
Yes.
not loyal to the Marlians. He is loyal. He's loyal to the Eldian people, what I believe you said in our last episode. And at the same time, with Zeke revealing his master plan and, Yelena showing her loyalty, the willingness to help, all this stuff, um, the other Eldians don't even want to listen to him. They just want to. They're like, "Hang him all, shoot him," and it's like, what the heck? It's almost like there was a lot of parallel between the way the Eldians were treating these people to the way that Marlians normally treat Eldians.
Yes, 100%. I think that is very, very intentional.
Yeah, and it's kind of sad because especially when like later on when Nicolo gets like the shit kicked out of him,
Oh
and
man,
and
poor
the, for
Nicolo.
for being a Marlian, it's like, do you guys not realize that like that's what you have to be better? You're no different from them if you do that stuff, and that was one thing I found really frustrating. But you kind of see that they start to loosen up a little bit. They're like, oh wow, these guys are really actually teaching us a lot of stuff, and they want to help. Um, and you learn about how they learn how to use semi-automatic weapons, and they start getting really damn good with guns. Um,
Yes. When you've lived your entire life to survive and learn how to kill things, I imagine, I mean, in reality, a gun is probably significantly easier to learn how to use than ODM gear and the swords attacking Titans. So it's not that much of a leap for them to be like, oh, they're just good with guns now. Because also they also had guns anyway. It was just like semi-automatic stuff that was like weird for them. They were like, whoa, you can fire more than one without reloading.
yeah, and the big thing, or one of the things that's really stuck out to me is you can tell how different a lot of these characters are after those 3 years. Like when Yelena first shows up, I'm specifically talking about, or in my mind, I'm specifically thinking about when Aaron's at the shooting range and it's Mikasa and Armin, and they're just kind of hanging out, and how hopeful Armin is. He's like, oh, well, maybe we can talk to them. We don't have to use the rumbling. And even Mikasa seems a little happy, but then you start to get the first feel of real dark Aaron, um, where they're talking about like, oh well, these people think we're monsters that can turn into titans and that we like kill people, and Aaron's just like, uh, they're right.
We are.
And I was like, damn. I'm like, I actually really like that. It's like, don't try and hide the fact of what they are. Like they can fucking turn into titans, and Aaron's really owning this whole devil thing. He's like, look, like the point, we are way past the point of conversation. Like they trapped us on an island and hid the history of the world from us. I don't think a good firm handshake is going to fix that. Like actions required, and just comparing that to the modern time scenes in this. Oh my God, those 3 years have really eaten at these people, um, and they're so intense. And this war, if you want to call it, is really taking a toll on them.
Yeah, 100%. And I mean, who would have guessed it in a show about the cycle of violence and war, seeing the parallels between two different people and how they can be equally terrible in the same exact ways. It kind of makes sense. Um, yeah, someone that I did want to talk to about, like, I don't know what it is. Again, it's that magic number of like three characters, but between Yelena, Anya Capone, and Nicolo, these three characters, just for whatever reason, like they got kind of small amount of screen time, but I really like each of them. Like we already talked about Yelena. Anya Capone is he doesn't have that many lines, but I like what he says when the scout regiment people, like, was it Sasha that asked him why does he have dark skin?
Yeah.
Yeah. So when she asked him that, and he kind of like he was being real smooth, and he like puts his hand on his chin. And he's like, I just think our creator wanted us to it'd be more interesting with a mix of different people, which I like that answer a lot. I'm like, it's just a kind of like I don't know. It just seems like innocent, maybe the right word that I'm thinking of. It just seems like an innocent answer. Like there's nothing that was super tongue in cheek about it, or like any super political
It seems really
undertones.
honest.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's just what I believe.
yeah, exactly. And he kind of because I like the idea of him not only introducing the fact of there are people with different skin colors out in the world, but also like he kind of like brings up the idea of God, and it doesn't seem like the Paradise Islanders understand what God is. Which I guess that makes sense because like the only religion that was inside the wall was like the wall religion, right? So like their gods were the wall women, right?
Yeah, that's correct. So it was definitely when Armin's like, God, our creator, and then he kind of like steps back. He's like, well, that's just what some people believe.
And then I love the part where he's just like, aren't we free to believe what we want? And then the camera is just showing Armin, and you can see the inside of his mind. He's just like, oh my god. It's like philosophy overload inside of Armin's little coconut head.
Yeah. I really like those three characters, and with Niccolo being, he's not a he is not a volunteer. He's
At
not.
first.
He is an actual Marlian. Um, and they at first he was the one that Hanji and Levi were holding captive when they were trying to talk with the scout ship. So he's basically a prisoner. He's a POW. Yeah,
Exactly.
but damn, can he cook?
Oh my god, dude! I literally am. The last thing in my notes is Nicolo's a roller coaster of a character because he starts off as that Marlian who is like, "Kill me and all these dirty pigs" or whatever, and then he has the scene where he like cooks the seafood, and then everyone's like, "What the fuck is this?" And then Sasha starts eating it and just goes bananas and starts crying because she loves it so much, and you can see he's like, he breaks because it's like they're not devils, they're just people. And I love seeing people realize that in this show. And then the fact that he's there at the end, because again, I said I wasn't like as emotionally invested in Sasha's death last episode as they kind of made it seem I should be. This episode, seeing Niccolo at her grave and hearing him say to her father, like, she used to eat my food and really like it. If I'd be happy, if you want, come eat my food that I cook. I was like, oh man, this is so sweet.
Yeah, that definitely made it a lot sweeter, and I was happy they did that. Because even just seeing Sasha in the flashbacks, I was like, oh.
Yeah,
Like
seeing her in this episode
when she
again, like
when she just goes when she's like, oh, just starts eating the lobster, I was laughing my ass off.
seeing normal Sasha right after seeing Sasha get murked by a tiny child. Oh,
Oh,
that it's like then it started to hit me more. Like it was like a delayed effect. Like they knew what they were doing. They're like, all right, we know some of you heartless bastards out there might not really care that much. We're gonna make you care in the next episode. And by golly, they did.
yeah. That reminds me, like, I want to talk about Zeke, Gabby, and Falco. So it looks like Zeke had this master plan, and Zeke, Gabby, and Falco are all in paradise. Um, they're back. It looks like everybody successfully made it back to paradise after the attack on Marley. Um, and they're kind of touting it as, "Oh, we won. It was a great battle, and it was a mission accomplished." Um, but it's kind of weird because it's like, what's next? Um, and it appears Zeke has a plan, but the Paradise Islanders are kind of hostile. Not kind of hostile, definitely hostile to these people who just really helped them. Joe, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I definitely say all the Paradise Islanders are incredibly hostile to the Marlians. I mean, between the guy kicking Niccolo in the graveyard because he was a Marlian, between having to hide Zeke because I mean nobody trusts Zeke really, which is understandable because he did murder loads of your people, and then also the scene that really like crushed my soul a little bit when Yelena and some of her men had brought the Titan serum back and was talking with Commander Pixis, which shout out to Pixis, haven't seen you since like season one, Jesus.
That's just me with a mustache.
Exactly. But seeing Commander Pixis dealing with Yelena and her men, and they all have the guns that the Marlians brought with them and gave as like a sign of I don't know like peace and respect between them to like show them how to use the guns pointed at them. It kind of hurt me a little bit. I was like, but Pixis being, you know, the self aware, mature, I don't know, general commander, whatever the heck he is, he was just sort of like, I understand that this isn't exactly, you know, good, for lack of a better term, but also, I know it's selfish of me to ask, but just can you deal with us being overly cautious for a little while longer before the rest of the plan goes into motion? And I like how cool Yelena was because Yelena understands, our people have been screwing with your people for pretty much the entirety of your people's existence since you were put on this island. So it's understandable the amount of hatred that you all have towards us and distrust that you have going on, especially in these like high tension times. Like you just declared war essentially on Marley, and your everything is in overdrive right now. Paranoia is probably at its highest. So that hurt me, even though it was understandable, like seeing that, and I'm sure it hurt Yelena and the men, and the relations are just they're real tense right now. But it's so the tension is so good.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. Yelena definitely handled it properly, but at the same time, it was kind of heartbreaking. Where it's like I get it, but damn, like why, they're doing all this stuff and now you're pointing guns at them. It definitely was a little heartbreaking. But there's two more points I wanted to bring up. So the one thing I'm still a little confused about is, how long has Zeke been anti-Marley? How long has he been trying to, um, you know, work to, I don't know, get the Eldians back to power? Because if you're trying to tell me he was doing that when he was throwing boulders at when Levi first attacked him, and when they were first attacking the scouts back on Paradise, that I'd be a little iffy towards that. I'd be a little confused. So I want a little
Well,
bit more info about that.
yeah. What was the main goal of the Titans from Marley that had come in to Paradise?
To retake the founding Titan.
Precisely. And so I think the fact that Zeke was so gung ho about it, I'm fairly certain, even because obviously Marley wanted the founding Titan
Uh,
just because they wanted it for their power.
but he
But I
wanted
wouldn't
it
be
to,
surprised,
yeah.
yeah, exactly, if Zeke was also trying to capture Aaron, because that was also something that Rayner and Bertholdt were doing with Ymir. Remember when they had
Mm-hmm.
Aaron? They're like, we need to capture Aaron. Like, our entire thing is we have to capture Aaron. Um, which, again, could be seen as Marley needs Aaron just because they need the Founding and the Attack Titan back. Um, but also, you know, under Zeke might have been like, I have other plans just this entire time. So I wouldn't be surprised if like basically all of this time Zeke has secretly been planning this. I don't know if we'll get an answer to when exactly he was like, I have formed my master plan to take back or to free the Eldians or whatever. But I think it still all makes sense no matter where you look at it from as of right now. So
Yeah. The other thing that I was gonna bring up is Gabby. Um, she got
you mean
rabies.
Aaron 2.0?
She so her and Falco are in prison on Paradise. Falco's just kind of like, ah, shit, what the hell did I get myself into? And Gabby's like, I'm a kill, I'm a murder.
One person in particular.
Ellen Yeager.
Exactly.
And I'm kind of interested to see, like, I would assume Zeke is gonna at some point probably talk to them and be like, "Hey guys, um, so you know that all that Marley bullshit they taught you, we're gonna forget about that, and you're gonna go. You see Aaron, you're gonna give him a big hug because he's our Lord and Savior."
You're gonna give him a hug, and then you're gonna say, "I'm sorry," and then we're gonna move on with our lives. Otherwise, we're all gonna fucking die.
And I can see Falco doing it. But I feel like when Gabby's gonna go give Aaron a hug, she might accidentally put a shiv into his stomach.
Yeah, which wouldn't be great because he could just then transform and murk her.
Yeah, and the one other thing I was gonna say, Joe, I know you don't watch the after credits preview. Um,
Okay.
I watched it and they barely gave you anything, which is weird because in all the other episodes they gave you a lot in the preview. So now I'm even more interested in this next episode because I have absolutely no, like, I feel like we've been able to predict the next episodes pretty well. But this next episode, I got no clue what they're going to do. Are they going to jump back to Marley? Is it going to be how the Marlians are dealing with this? Is it going to be continuing what's going on in, after this attack? Is it going to be more flashbacks? I for the hell I know, they could time jump forward another 3 years.
If it time jump forward again, I don't know what I'm gonna do. That'd be so weird. Just be like, all right, so we've spent about 10 episodes in 4 year time skip. Now, time skip again. It's like, wait, what? No.
Yeah, I'm excited. And I'm also excited to see, if Annie gets some role in this.
Oh my god.
Would be
Bring back Annie.
so cool, especially to see how she reacts.
Yeah, because she's not like up to date.
Oh,
I don't think she can hear through the crystal structure with Armin speaking. I think she's in a coma. So like
yeah.
she's gonna come to and be like, "Hey, this is Armin speaking. Hey, Annie. So Aaron is now the Attack Titan, the Founding Titan, and the Warhammer Titan. Also, he's hot as fuck. And then we have,
Ripped.
yeah, he got. I don't know what he's doing, but he on that
He's just
CrossFit life.
listening to DMX and doing pull-ups. That's it.
That's literally it. And then I kind of ate Bert Holt, and so now I'm the Colossal Titan. Also, we're working with some people from your native home. We now have guns. Yeah. So what's new with you?
We might have killed a lot of people at your home, but it's okay. They deserved it.
It's all right. They were all dicks, especially that
Even
little
the
boy with the
children.
teddy bear. He had it
That's
coming.
what I was gonna say. Oh my goodness. Take that out of context.
Oh no.
Well, Joe, this episode was exactly what I needed. I think it was a slowing down of the pace, a lot of information, um, which is what we predicted, and there's so much every week, something new, man. And whether it's with the episodes of the show, how many episodes we're getting, the movie, who knows? But I'm excited, and I can't wait for next episode, man.
Yeah, me too. Because again, this week's episode, it was again slowing down the pace, real nice. It's that nice. It's the breathing space, which was very good. And I really don't know where next episode is going to go. So I'm very intrigued to see what they do with that. Alrighty, and with that, I shall say, leave a like, comment, subscribe, do all those wonderful things. And that's going to be it from us for this week. So catch us next week when we return with final season of Attack on Titan, episode 10. Love y'all, guys. Bye bye.